Have you ever wondered why the kindest soul in the room sometimes carries the darkest rage? The empath walks softly, almost invisible to the noise of the world. Their presence is gentle, their eyes attuned to pain most cannot see. They feel before they think. They listen beyond words. And in that sacred sensitivity, they become the unwitting mirror to the unconscious of others. The empath, according to Carl Jung's shadow work, is not merely a tender being, they are a vessel for the collective repressions, the silences, the suppressed guilt and unhealed trauma of everyone they encounter. But what happens when that mirror shatters? You see, most people project. They disown their darkest traits, their selfishness, envy, cruelty, and hurl them outward. But the empath, in their instinct to heal, absorbs what others project. They internalize shadows not their own, carrying wounds they never inflicted, apologizing for storms they didn't cause. They confuse empathy with responsibility. And over time, a poison brews in their soul. Carl Jung warned, the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. This is nowhere more terrifyingly true than in the empath's psyche. Because their light is undeniable, radiant, nurturing, even angelic. But behind that glowing warmth simmers the most dangerous alchemy, rage, suppressed too long, boundaries, trampled too often, a soul contorted under the weight of trying to be good. And when it breaks, when the empath finally snaps, they don't erupt like an ordinary person. They become the very darkness they once tried to rescue others from. They become the embodiment of every injustice they swallowed without a word. Not because they are evil, but because they were never allowed to say no, because they were trained to abandon their own needs in the name of peace. And so, their vengeance is never petty. It is surgical. Their silence turns to precision. Their pain becomes prophecy. You've seen it before. The quiet woman who gave and gave, until one day she left without a trace. The loyal man who tolerated betrayal, then disappeared with a chilling calm. When an empath finally withdraws their light, the void left behind is felt like a spiritual death. Their departure is not revenge, it is revelation. It exposes just how dependent the other had become on their emotional labor. The empath doesn't destroy like a wildfire. They destroy like frostbite. Slowly, imperceptibly, until the other wakes up and realizes the warmth is gone and it's never coming back. And yet, the real danger is not even their wrath. It's their ability to become everything they once feared. Because in the deep caverns of their psyche lies the repressed shadow of power. Empaths are often taught that strength equals cruelty, that assertion equals selfishness. So they reject their inner warrior. But when shadow work begins, when they are forced to confront their inner archetypes, they meet the predator, the sorceress, the dark king, the unforgiving mother. And once embraced, these forces awaken with terrifying clarity. Now, they don't just feel your pain. They see your patterns. They read your ego's games. They hear the lies beneath your words. And they no longer flinch. They no longer try to fix you. They let you drown in your own unconsciousness, not from hatred, but from liberation. This is where individuation begins. The empath, once fragmented by the compulsive need to save others, starts to integrate. They no longer derive their worth from how much they can tolerate. They begin to confront the inner tyrant who told them love must be earned through suffering. And they begin to reclaim. You may not recognize them now. They walk taller, speak slower, and look you in the eyes with unsettling stillness. Their compassion hasn't died, it has simply grown teeth. Their boundaries are sacred, enforced not with anger but with detachment. They are no longer addicted to being understood. And if you try to cross them again, if you try to manipulate, gaslight, or feed off their kindness, you'll be met with something ancient. Something primal. Not the sweet, self-sacrificing angel you once knew. But the archetype of the initiated empath, the one who has kissed their shadow and returned with fire in their hands. There is a sacred silence that descends after an empath awakens to their power, not a silence of weakness, but of mastery. Gone are the days when they explained themselves, over-explained their intentions, or begged to be seen. Now, they let their absence speak louder than their pleas ever could. Their energy no longer flows toward those who drain it. It returns inward, consolidating into presence, into sovereignty. The people around them feel the shift. Some call them cold. Others say they've changed. But it's not that they've changed, it's that they've remembered who they were before the world taught them to shrink. This is the paradox Carl Jung alluded to, that healing does not make you more agreeable. It makes you more whole. And wholeness includes the fire, not just the light. You begin to see it in their posture, the way they no longer lean forward to accommodate, the way their words land with finality, not apology. They've stopped absorbing everyone else's chaos. Instead, they become the eye of the storm. The calm that unnerves. Because they are no longer a sponge, they are a mirror. And mirrors don't lie. But here's the truth no one tells you: an unhealed empath is not noble, they are unstable. Because when you keep bleeding for others without tending to your own wounds, your compassion curdles into resentment. You smile, but inside you seethe. You give, but secretly hope someone will finally reciprocate. You call it kindness, but it's self-abandonment with a halo. And eventually, your soul revolts. When that revolt comes, it doesn't always look like rage. Sometimes, it looks like radical boundaries. Like disappearing from the lives of those who took you for granted. Like saying, I no longer need to explain why you don't have access to me. And this is where the empath becomes truly dangerous, not because they harm others, but because they stop allowing others to harm them. In a society that thrives on codependence and emotional enmeshment, this is threatening. The awakened empath becomes unpredictable. Uncontrollable. They can no longer be guilt-tripped, love-bombed, or manipulated with old wounds. Why? Because they've brought those wounds to the surface. They've met their inner child in the ruins. And they've said, you never had to earn love. This is shadow integration. The moment when the empath stops running from their own unmet needs. When they stop rescuing others in hopes of being rescued themselves. When they realize that feeling deeply is a gift, but sacrificing themselves for others' comfort is a distortion of that gift. You might be someone who once leaned on them too much. Who used their presence as an emotional crutch, assuming it would always be there. But now they walk differently. Not with bitterness, but with discernment. They no longer need to prove their worth by enduring mistreatment. They no longer seek healing in broken places. You may try to reach them. You may write long messages, show up with apologies, remind them of the history you shared. But they don't operate on guilt anymore. They operate on alignment. If your presence disrupts their peace, you won't be granted a second chance. Not because they hate you, but because they finally love themselves. Do not mistake this for cruelty. This is justice, the internal kind. The kind Marcus Aurelius called right action. The kind that no longer lets emotional vampires feast under the illusion of love. The Stoics knew it. Jung knew it. The modern empath, rising from their ashes, knows it too. And if you are one of them, if you've spent your life feeling too much, giving too much, breaking in silence, then listen carefully. Your sensitivity was never the problem. Your silence was. You are allowed to stop bleeding for those who treat your lifeblood as convenience. You are allowed to be soft and sovereign, kind and clear, loving and unbending. The world taught you that your empathy made you weak. But the truth is brutal and liberating. When you stop misusing it, when you stop offering it to the unworthy, it becomes your greatest strength. And your most dangerous weapon. In the deep architecture of the psyche, there is a reckoning that comes to all who feel too much and say too little. For the empath, this reckoning is not a breakdown, it is a breakthrough. It is the moment their soul claws its way back from the abyss of codependence and whispers, no more. No more swallowing anger to keep the peace. No more smiling through betrayal. No more nodding while their spirit screams. Because what the world forgets is this: an empath is not just a healer, they are a warrior of the unseen. They battle with forces that most people spend lifetimes avoiding. They carry not just their own wounds, but echoes of generational pain, cultural expectation, ancestral silence. And when they begin to unravel those threads, when they finally turn inward instead of bleeding outward, they awaken something ancient. This is the phase Jung referred to as the confrontation with the shadow. It is not poetic. It is primal. It is the moment the empath meets the part of themselves they've been taught to fear, the selfish one, the angry one, the one who doesn't care, the one who walks away. But instead of exiling this self, they integrate it. They shake hands with it. And suddenly, the empath is no longer fragmented. They are whole. And a whole human is the most dangerous force on earth. Because now, their love is not compulsive. It's conscious. Now, their giving is not boundless. It is chosen. Now, their presence is not a lifeboat for the drowning, it is a beacon for the worthy. And you can feel the shift. Before, their eyes used to plead, see me, hear me, understand me. Now, their gaze is steady. You are free to misunderstand them. You are free to project onto them. But you are no longer entitled to their energy. Because they have reclaimed the throne of their nervous system. They are not here to be consumed. They are here to be. And if you've ever lost an empath after their awakening, you'll understand this truth. They don't just walk away from you, they walk toward themselves. And they do so without noise. No drama, no grand declarations. Just a quiet, thunderous knowing that their soul matters more than your comfort. The dangerous empath is not malicious. They are precise. They don't yell. They don't threaten. They don't retaliate. They remove. They remove access. They remove false narratives. They remove the emotional contracts they never agreed to. And in doing so, they force everyone around them to face their own shadows. For some, this is intolerable. Because it's easy to blame the empath for being too much when they're absorbing your dysfunction. But when they stop, when they leave you to face yourself, the mirror becomes unbearable. That's when the rage comes. The smearing. The accusations that they've changed, that they're cold, that they've lost their compassion. But the truth is, they've just stopped betraying themselves. In the philosophy of the Stoics, this is called living in accordance with nature, the nature of your own soul. Epictetus taught that the only true control we have is over our own will, our own consent. The awakened empath finally understands this. They stop consenting to their own exhaustion. They stop confusing martyrdom with maturity. And they realize, to protect your peace is not to abandon others. It is to honor the divine spark within you. Now, their boundaries are not walls, they are gates. And only those who approach with reverence may enter. Their love, once scattered like seeds on barren ground, is now given like sacred flame, warm, powerful, and not to be mishandled. If you are still in the phase of breaking for everyone who knocks, let this awaken something inside you. You were never meant to be everyone's sanctuary. You were meant to become your own. And from that sanctuary, to choose, with intention, who is worthy to receive the warmth you once gave away freely. The dangerous empath is not dangerous because they cause harm. They are dangerous because they no longer tolerate it. There comes a moment in every empath's evolution when they stop asking why others hurt them and begin to ask a deeper, more sacred question: why did I allow it for so long? And that question cracks open the core. It tears through illusions of nobility, of virtue through suffering, of love that demands self-erasure. It reveals the ancient wound, the wound of not being enough unless in pain. This is the root of it all. The empath's original fracture. Somewhere in childhood, or even earlier, they learned that to be loved was to disappear. That safety came from anticipating needs, smoothing conflict, dissolving their own presence so others could feel whole. And so, they grew like ivy around the jagged shapes of everyone else's dysfunction, shapeshifting, accommodating, never asking, only giving. But here's the truth few are ready to face: that same empathy, unchecked, becomes self-violence. To feel for others while abandoning your own truth is not compassion. It is spiritual betrayal. And when the empath sees this, truly sees it, something monumental begins. Not with fury, but with clarity. They begin to take the spotlight off others. The narcissist they couldn't fix. The addict they tried to heal. The lover who could never hold their pain. The friends who only called when they were breaking. All of it fades into the background. And in its place stands one figure, themselves. Unadorned. Unrescued. Unmasked. This is the birth of the inner adult. The one who looks at the wounded inner child and says, I will not let you bleed out for connection anymore. The one who stops performing goodness and begins living truth. The one who stops leaking energy toward what does not feed their soul. Carl Jung called this individuation the sacred path of becoming whole. It is not an easy path. It costs everything that was built on illusion. Roles. Titles. Pleasing. Pleading. The empath must shed them all. And it feels, at first, like death. Because it is. The death of the false self. The self that was constructed to survive a world that did not know how to hold them. But from that death comes something fierce. Something unyielding. A center. And once that center forms, the empath becomes immovable. Not hardened, but grounded. They don't need to shout to be heard. Their silence speaks volumes. They don't need to chase love. Their presence commands it. People begin to notice that their energy is different. That they don't jump to explain, to soothe, to save. That they look you in the eye and say, I trust myself now. And nothing is more disarming than someone who no longer fears your withdrawal. The empath, once addicted to approval, now moves by inner guidance, not external praise. They are done performing safety for others. They are their own safety. If you are one who once relied on their kindness, who used their open heart as your hiding place, you may feel confused, even angry. You may accuse them of becoming cold, ruthless, arrogant. But pause. Look closer. What you're really seeing is self-respect. And if that threatens you, perhaps it's because you were never loving them, you were using them. And if you are the empath, hear this like a drumbeat in your bones, you owe no one your continued self-abandonment. Your light is not meant to be exploited. Your gifts are not free for the taking. They are sacred. You are sacred. And your awakening is not a loss, it is a homecoming. You are no longer available for relationships built on dependency. You are no longer seduced by chaos masquerading as passion. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You have chosen yourself. And this is your revolution. The dangerous empath is not made in a moment of rage. They are born in the quiet aftermath of betrayal, in the hours spent holding their own brokenness, in the sacred decision to rise anyway. Their danger lies not in how they fight, but in how they refuse to collapse ever again. In the end, what emerges is not just a healed empath, but an initiated soul forged by fire, silence, and the long ache of invisibility. They do not seek revenge. They seek balance. And that balance, once reclaimed, changes everything. Now, their yes means yes. Their no means no. And there is no need to justify either. They do not explain their boundaries like confessions. They do not contort themselves to make others comfortable. They do not apologize for choosing themselves. Because for the first time, they believe they are enough, not because they are needed, but because they exist. It is here, in this sacred reclaiming, that their true power reveals itself. Not in dominance, but in discernment. Not in control, but in clarity. They no longer react, they respond. They do not seek to be right, they seek to be real. Their presence is no longer one of desperate love, it is one of self-honoring truth. And yet, those who remain asleep will still call them dangerous. They will label this power as arrogance. This clarity as selfishness. This refusal to enable dysfunction as abandonment. But what they're really saying is, your growth threatens the system that benefited from your silence. Let them speak. The initiated empath does not return to the cage of explanation. They know that being misunderstood is the cost of true liberation. Carl Jung warned that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And when you refuse to carry others' shadows, when you stop taking responsibility for their triggers, you force them to confront that soul. Some will rise. Most will retreat. And either way, the empath is free. You may notice how they move differently now. Slower. More deliberate. Not from trauma, but from presence. They are no longer chasing timelines, rescuing others from consequences, or rushing to heal what doesn't belong to them. They allow discomfort. They allow endings. They allow truth. And their energy? It's no longer chaotic. It's magnetic. They no longer give their power away, they radiate it. And it draws in only those who are ready to meet them in wholeness. Not as savior and victim, not as fixer and broken, but as two sovereign beings walking side by side. To encounter such an empath, one who has done the shadow work, who has walked through the fire of self-betrayal and come out clean, is to encounter something divine. You cannot lie to them. You cannot manipulate their wounds. You cannot perform pain and expect reward. They will see right through you and smile with compassion, then walk away. Because they do not need to punish you. Your own unhealed parts will do that for you. They no longer need to convince, to teach, to plead. They embody. And embodiment is the loudest teacher of all. So if you feel the sting of their absence, if their silence pierces deeper than any scream, know this: you were in the presence of someone who saw you, held you, and chose to save themselves instead of drowning beside you. And that is not cruelty, it is courage. And if you are that empath, trembling at the edge of your awakening, afraid of who you will lose, of who will no longer love you once you stop bleeding for them, hear this with the weight of truth. You will lose many. You will grieve the fantasy. You will walk alone for a time. But you will also find yourself. And in finding yourself, you will become a lighthouse to those still lost at sea. Not by swimming out to rescue them, but by standing still, by shining from your own anchored truth. And those who are ready will come. Not for rescue, but for resonance. This is the final gift of the dangerous empath, not vengeance, not destruction, but liberation. For themselves. For others. For the lineage of broken healers who came before them. Let your light no longer be a torch for the undeserving. Let it be the fire that warms you. You have earned your peace. You have earned your silence. You have earned yourself. The initiated empath no longer walks in fear. They walk in truth. And truth, once embraced, is the most dangerous thing of all.